The Museum Roadshow is brought to you by Carvinens.
If we go across the street, that was another standard. Standard stations had a big sign. It would have a torch on the sign. They were white with red and blue trim. Well, let's go all the way down the block. The M&H station. M&H was Miller and Holmes, and they had a big red M outline in black and a H the same way. They had a little different concept. No service, but they gave their customers, they gave them premiums. You might get a plate or a vase or a cup or a glass, whatever you wanted. That they were displayed in between the pumps. That station was very small. It was about as big as 2 fish houses. You know how big a fish house is, don't you, Don? Well, across the street to the south was an Imperial station. They were a little different. They were open only in the summer, and they sold straw products. They would sell like a mannequin with a hat on it or things like that. And but here we come into the 60s. Johnny Reboff opens Johnny's 66. Big orange sign with black lettering, 66. Well, Johnny Reboff was an old Dodge mechanic, so he had lots of customers and did repair work. But his real claim to fame is people would go down to Johnny's and they'd want to know, where can I catch a fish? And he knew where all the fish were because he was a great fisherman. There used to be a guy 15, 20 years ago around Detroit Lakes that had a pickup, General Motors pickup, and had all kinds of lettering on it and told what a great fisherman he was. Well, Johnny Reboff would catch more fish in a day than that guy would catch in a week or two. And if nothing else, they would come and they wanted to hear Johnny Reboff's latest fishing story, and he'd tell it with his big grin. Later, that station was run by Lyle Bunnis and Gundy the policeman. Well, let's go down along Westlake Drive out to Chesterfield. Here we find a station, different concept. It was kind of a mom and pop station, and Chester sold General Tires. Well, Chester, on the weekends, when everybody else was playing, Chester would go to some of the fleets in town and he'd check their tires, air them up, repair them, replace them, so those fleets were ready to go early Monday morning. And he did well at it. Chester was a very slow moving man, but very deliberate. He got a lot of work done. Let's go to the corner of Lincoln and Frazee. This station started off, it was a conical station. It was run by, well, Kurt Eidenschenk, then Larry Schramm, and lastly, Dick Engen. Well, here comes Pat Grover. Pat Grover opens that up as a tire store, changes it to a Shell gas station, and he has his left-hand man, Lloyd Thompson, running that store, and it really put that location on the map. They sold tires, tires, tires. I believe they had an alignment rack there as well. If we go down a block to McKinley, and Frazee. We find Lynch running a Phillips 66. And then smiley, happy-go-lucky Jim Murphy. Across the street, we have a Pure station, and that's run by Norris Hoffman. His niche is bait and ice. Sadly, Norris died too young. Then Earl King and his partners had the station. And later, here come Carl and Morris Knutson from the north. Well, there are two things. They wanted to add to be able to sell fuel oil, which they were, and at about this time, the overpass went over the railroad tracks to reroute Highway 59. Good move on their part. They would have been unable to sell fuel oil because Harold F. Carlson had that locked up. If we go diagonally across the street to the southeast, there was a Deep Rock station. No service. But Jerry Anderson ran that. Later, Brad Ness. This is where Brad Ness got his start in the car business. He'd have a couple of real shiny used cars, and that worked well for him. Now, we need to go down to Bringelson's on the corner of Roosevelt and Frazee. Well, you see they're really well equipped. They haul their own gasoline. They sell fuel oil. They have Chrysler, Plymouth, Packard, a lot of employees, but two of those employees are Carl and Morris Knutson. That's where they got their start. And here they have the famous cafe. And if you were a late nighter in Detroit Lakes, chances are at some time you spent some time there. And as you can see, that's really a big garage. Bringelson sold out to Wildman Frenchy Baber. Frenchy Baber had Oldsmobile and Internationals. Well, one night he put one of his new Oldsmobiles into Nelson Monument Works, and that was right where you'd start into Roosevelt Underpass. And that was kind of about the end of Frenchy's business career in Detroit Lakes. Well, then DS took over the station, but the station was always known as Baber's Cafe. If we go across the street, there was a cafe and a Skelly station. Betty Einsick ran the cafe. And there was Tom Keenan that was one of the operators. Abunus was one of the operators. And Schramm's had it for a year. They had their used cars there, serviced cars, and sold gas. If we go kitty corner across the street, here's another Imperial under the same line. In the late 50s, Reuben Tuber comes to town, opens up a Clark gas station. Their colors are orange and white, a little different station. They sell premium only. I don't remember if it was the same price as regular or if it was 2 cents more. And those stations...
Cigarettes too.
Pardon me?
They sold cigarettes too.
And that's where Don got his cigarettes. They were always very neat. The grass was mowed just so, and you can see the curbs were always painted a pure white. There was no service there. And then we go down to Highway 10. Clayton Blackdick leases a piece of land to Pat Grover again. And he has Gasport. He has his right-hand man, Arlo Block, running that station. Arlo spent many years in stations and really knew his business. But that was a truck stop, as was the Bringleson station. And it'd be kind of about where Donauhauer's is now, sort of in that area. And they fixed big truck tires. It was 24-hour, and it was that way until the gas shortage in 73, 74. Well, let's go out to Bowes Corner. Everybody knows where Bowes Corner is? Well, Bowes Corner is where you turn onto East Shore Drive. And that station was lost when new Highway 10 was made into a four-way. And Casey's is sort of in that vicinity now. Let's go out to Hills Corner. Anybody knows where that is? That's out across from Fat Lip Auto Restorations. And you should know where that is if you're car people. Anyway, that was run by Bert Hill. Bert Hill's little niche, he had a pet bear. And of course, everybody's kid said, let's go see the bear to get when we get gas. So Mom and Dad had a lot of pressure on him. Later, that was sold to Dave and Don Sayer, and that was operated as swinging doors, and it became a beer joint as well as a gas station. Well, as Highway 10 became the 4-lane, it made a curve down through where it didn't used to go and eliminated Washington Avenue as a highway. Well, about a block off of McKinley was a Champlin station. It was a new station put up, and the only operator I remember is Dell.
Thanks for watching the Museum Roadshow, brought to you by Carvinens.